for 2, and Luka's summer ahead. Let's go around the horn.
Hopefully for summer of red.
16-3 in these playoffs, en route to banner 18. One is dominant, the other historic. I don't need to say any more. Rapid fire around the horn on these Celtics. All-time great team, all-time great run, or something else? Tim Kalishaw, first to you.
I'm going to go all-time great run. I don't think we look at the way the team is constructed and say it compares to the Bird, Parrish, McHale Celtics, but teams today don't look like that. They look like, at best, at the very best, Golden State a few years ago. And this team is similar in great outside shooting, great three-point shooting from 4 different sources, sometimes 5, and great three-point defense, which is really what the game is about. And it's what Joe Mazzulla has drilled into them. And they guarded on the three-point line better than anybody. And that's how they took rather shockingly easy control of this series.
All-time great run, says Tim Kalishaw. Kevin Clark, how do you plead? Around the horn to you.
All-time great team. If you woke up this morning and you are knocking the Boston Celtics for basketball reasons, you hate the Celtics more than you like basketball. That's the long and the short of it, because this has been an astounding 8 months of basketball in the regular season and in the playoffs. They're the first team since 2017 to have the best regular season winning percentage and win the title. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are obviously nailed-on superstars. This was a special run. What are you looking for in a great team, if not this?
Marcel Louis-Jacques, all-time great team, all-time great run. Around the horn to you.
I think an all-time run from an all-time team. When you look at their production in the postseason, they had the second best win percentage of any team in any postseason in NBA history. By the numbers, statistically, we have to talk about them as an all-time team. And I know you could point at their run. You know, they played the Heat, they played the Pacers, they played the Cavs. Like, none of these are world beaters, I'm sure. But this was still a very, very good team. In 101 games this year, they had at least a 20-point lead in 50 of them. 50 wins would have got you the second seed in the East this year. So, like, they're not a dominant team because their competition is bad. Their competition is bad because they're a dominant team.
Bars from Marcel Louis-Jacques. And Harry Lyles Jr. around the horn, too. All-time great team, all-time great run, or something else?
I would go all-time great team in the sense that dominance sticks out to me in this starting in the regular season. They had a point differential of plus 11.3 per game over the regular season. That was 5th best in NBA history. They had 17 games of at least 25 or more points that they won those games by. That is number 1 in NBA history. And then we talk about the stretch in the postseason, 16-3 over those 19 games. If you do that in any portion of the season, it is good. For you to do that in the postseason, it is great. And I think that a lot of people, similarly to the Nuggets run from last season, tried to find reasons why this was not a great team or a dominant run, but it absolutely was. And it was very clear to see, because we talked about how great the Western Conference was all season, how great they're going to be in the future, and they just took out this team in 5 games. So it was an all-time great dominant run.
I sense, though, you want to provide some history. So do that, then. Is this team better than the Golden State team from, 8 years ago, let's say? Or are they better than the Heat teams from before that? Are they better than the Lakers team of Kobe and Shaq? Are they better than the Jordan Bulls and then the Lakers and Celtics from the 80s? Go ahead, Tim, tell us.
No, and no. Although, to your point about the Warriors, again, I think they're similarly constructed, and that's the kind of teams you're going to get. You're not going to have 7'2" centers with their back to the basket. You're not going to have Shaquille O'Neals. You're not going to have, nobody has a Michael Jordan, but you don't have to have that when you have 4 perimeter players as good as they are. And I would say this, the Celtics of Game 1, in other words, the Celtics with a healthy Kristaps Porzingis scoring 20 points and blocking shots at the other end, that is a great team in anybody's definition, in anybody's era.
We'll move on. Bill Russell, MVP. Jaylen Brown. He won the vote 11-4 over Jason Tatum. Tatum did lead the team in points, assists, and rebounds, so maybe you have a debate there. The history of these two and how you people talked about them, fair or foul for years, and the vindication of a championship, if you believe in that. Kevin Clark, around the horn to you. How to view them today and the MVP.
I view them as incredible cogs in a legendary run. I look at this MVP debate and see two credible MVP candidates in these finals. Obviously, Jaylen Brown's defense on Luka was a determining factor for many voters. I talked to them here in the hallway at the ESPN Seaport and got exactly that answer.
Inside information, okay.
You look at Jason Tatum and you think about the fact that in Game 5, let's just look at Game 5, when he was double teamed, the Celtics were able to go 7 of 9 shooting 21 points. He was also able to affect the game with his assist. The gravity of the court shifted towards him. I would have gone Tatum in this scenario, but both of them were credible, and it just shows you how ridiculous the conversation has been around these two. NBA Twitter does not award championships. Superstars grab them. That's what
More bars from a panelist today. All right, point blank. Is the championship vindication for these two? Kevin?
Yes. Without it, that's what it is. That's the point. That's how you get vindication. The only way. They
Marcel
did it.
Louis-Jacques?
Yeah, I think that their mental fortitude and their ability to finish a job deserves to be commended. You heard what Jaylen Brown said, that his team looked at him when Jason Tatum was hurt in years past, and he failed miserably, so he had to reevaluate his game. We heard all the jokes. Jaylen Brown can't go left. He can go left, right, down, up, above you, through you, whatever direction he needs to get to the basket, he is capable of doing it. And then just the championship mentality, you could hear the hot mic on him saying, hey, if Luka is in the game, do not take me out. If Luka gives that ball away on the inbound, he's going to have to work like hell to get it back. Like, that is he's built like a champion. So I respect them. I'm happy that they were finally able to. They're an incredible duo.
And your MVP, Marcel?
It's Jaylen Brown. Best player on either side of the court, most consistent.
Harry Lyles Jr., your MVP this series.
It was Jaylen Brown. He was the best player this series. He was the best player last series. He's been the most consistent player for the Celtics during this entire run. The weirdest thing about this particular duo, and the reason we're even having part of this conversation, we have never had a pair of teammates in any sport that we have criticized more because of the success that they've had. Like, we're not talking about, like, we talk about these guys like they have owed us a championship.
Thank you for saying
They are
that,
26 and 27 years old. They have been to the Eastern Conference Finals 6 times. Like, if guys did this over an entire career, we would call it a great career. So Jaylen Brown is the MVP. By the way, if you are Jason Tatum and you want to steal one more bite, rest in peace to legendary Fife Dog. I never let a statue tell me how nice I am.
Man, you guys are cooking today. Tim Calishaw, your MVP in this series?
As the only panelist who was there when Jason Kidd told us Jaylen Brown is the best Celtic between games 1 and game 2, I would have voted for Jaylen Brown. Jason Tatum's shooting almost cost Boston in game 2, and the key quarter in the whole series, the third quarter of game 3 when it was close and the Mavs had a chance to get back in the series, Jaylen Brown, I think, was 15 points and 6 rebounds. He was finishing with that dunk down the middle that everybody remembers. He was a great player defensively. Tatum was great in Game 5. He was the best player last night, but I'd take Brown.
And big picture, Tim, when you think about a duo and you think about having to work on your game and get over a hump, how will you view them?
Well, I mean, yeah, so it took him a few years. It took Jordan and Pippen a few years to win a title. It takes most people a few years to go all the way. They've already been to, 3 conference finals, 2 NBA finals. Now they got a ring. They're both relatively young. So they've got a chance to have tremendous
We'll be
careers.
moving on now with another horn here. And I said rapid fire, even more rapid fire. The Celtics, as we know them now, they're going to be bringing back, the whole team. The whole top 8 minute getters are coming back. Tatum, Brown, Drew. Thanks, Bucks. Thanks, Blazers. Maybe a dental visit for Mr. White, but after that, he'll be coming back too. Joe Mazzulla's back. Brad Stevens, Celtics culture. Will any of you say dynastic? Around the horn, Harry Lyles Jr.
I think that would be asking a lot, but I also think that it is possible of this team because of the way that you saw the patience that it took from this franchise in order to build up this championship. With the new CBA kicking in on July 1st, it's going to make it harder to keep your own players. It's going to be harder to add pieces, and it's going to keep the richer from getting rich. But I think because of the young players that they have in place currently, that if there was a team that was going to accomplish this, I would pick the Boston
Marcel
Celtics.
Louis-Jacques, would you dare say dynastic?
I mean, it's possible. They won the East by like 14 games this year. I'm watching the Knicks though. They didn't have Julius Randle for a lot of the season, and they were a totally different team when he was on the court. And it feels like we say this about every very good champion, right? Like, oh man, dynasty is coming. They're going to go back to back. Like we said it about the Nuggets as well. It's hard. That's a lot of basketball.
But nobody's ever said the Knicks are what's standing in their way. I thought you might say the Western Conference. Kevin Clark, do you see the makings of a team that could win again and then still win again and again?
Yeah, Marcel, I think there are teams actually capable of winning a championship, so you don't need to name the Knicks here. You can name a bunch of Western Conference teams. I think those are the teams you circle. Life moves very fast in the NBA, but here's the Celtics building blocks. They have one of the best GMs, if not the best GM in basketball. They have genuine depth. They obviously have 2 young superstars, and they own 7 of their next 8 first-round picks in a league where everybody likes to mortgage their future for random veterans. They haven't done that. So I think they have the building blocks to keep this going. I don't know if it's a dynasty, but in the Eastern Conference, they could win a few more in a row here. They could win maybe a championship or 2 in the next couple of years, but the depth in the league right now is something. No one's going to be a dynasty.
Wrapping up the postseason then. Were there more blowouts this postseason? It kind of felt like that. The semifinals, the finals, really were no contests. Wild variance in games too, maybe because the way the game is played with the 3. Marcel, is the league in a good place?
Yeah, with the emphasis on three-point shooting, I think if a team gets hot, you're going to naturally see more blowouts, especially if one team's hot and one team is not. But all we want out of the league is parity, right? We've had 6 different champions in the past 6 years. Like the parity doesn't get better than that, right?
Okay.
Like Western Conference is razor thin. The margins are razor thin right now.
Do we want parity? Do you find yourself thinking the league's in a good place here?
Here's something we want more than parity: entertainment and variety. And we talk about, the Celtics, they shoot more threes than everybody. Okay, they shoot about 39 a game. The teams that hardly shoot any, they shoot about 31 a game. There's very little variety. Everybody does the same pick and roll. Everybody has the same three-point shooters lined up. And there's a lot of nights when those threes aren't falling, and it's a pretty dreadful game
Is that
to
the
watch.
normal ebb and flow of basketball, though? A copycat league, Tim? Or is the league in a different predicament right now?
Yeah, it's a different predicament, but I think teams will also figure out it's okay to shoot 2s when you've got open 2s that are going to fall 70% of the time.
One more story here.
But the analytics.
Jason Tatum is getting hard reviews for his mic work. Take a quick listen here. Some are saying he's biting off Kevin Garnett, and then Steph Curry, and then Kanye West. How do you review this, Harry Lyles Jr.?
We got to start coming up with original material. That's all I'll say at that.
Really? Because I give you guys
Yeah,
points
I mean-
when you have references on this show. I mean, you guys all
Yeah,
love
but I'm not passing it off as my own.
Yeah, I mean, you just gave him points for vindication for winning the title. Now everybody's got jokes on him again. Here's the image I want to point out here. Love this image here. That's a champion right there. Marcel next. And now where the Dallas Mavericks find themselves this summer. Where to go from here, what they need to tweak, where Luka and Kyrie go from here, and whether panelists would like to tweak calling them the greatest backcourt ever. Harry Lyles, I believe that may have been you. A magical run from the 5 seed to finals, ending in a loss in 5 games. Kyrie struggle, and of course, Luka taking his game apart by many in this series, the likes of which we've never seen. Tim, you were there. You took the beer from Michael Finley, who took the beer from Luka and flushed it. What to buy, what to sell now with the Mavs?
Well, I'm buying that they still have one of the greatest backcourts of all time, scoring-wise anyway, for a few more years. But they play in a much tougher conference than Boston. Denver still has the best player in the world. Kevin mentioned how many picks Boston has the next 8 years, 7, I think. Oklahoma City has all the others. They've got everybody else's first-round pick for the next 8 years. So they're going to do some damage. And, it's going to be hard to get back to where they went. There's no
Luka
question about it.
specifically. Maybe I'm exaggerating here, but it felt like, especially in the Game 3 loss, his game was picked apart like we've never seen, really, with the superstar. How does he handle this summer? Does he rebuild? Does he internalize that? How do you think?
I mean, he led the playoffs in points, rebounds, assists, and steals, so he didn't play horribly. He did have some defensive lapses, and he had the ridiculous foul out in Game 3. But I think he learns from that criticism, as Jason Kidd said he would, and I think he's a better player now.
Harry Lyles Jr. on the Mavericks.
Yeah, and I mean, Luka did all of those things on a very clearly bad leg with the way he was limping in many of these games that we saw during the postseason. I think the biggest tweak that he has needed to make, he already made after that Game 3 and change of his attitude and where his focus is when he's on the basketball court. I think this team is obviously set up with a bunch of young talent in Gafford, Washington, and Lively. I think the one piece that you'd like to see them at, I don't know that they can actually do this in free agency, is getting a 3-and-D wing person. Outside of that, I mean, they're still going to be very competitive in the West.
Marcel Louis-Jacques.
I think that Luka's got to adjust his attitude. Maybe his conditioning, but definitely his attitude. Defensively, I mean, playing defense is like 30% skill and 70% effort. And 80% of the time, Luka did not have that effort on defense, and that's why he kept getting attacked. Kyrie, I think he got 2 in his head, man, playing in Boston, answering question after question about it. You know, for a guy who famously said, just, you know, let the artists enjoy the art, you know, stop criticizing and enjoy the art. Like, he shouldn't allow outside narratives to get in his head like that. So I think the Mavs are going to be good in the, I think they're going to be good in the West. They're going to be good in the West. I don't know if they're an NBA Finals team again. I think the conference is way too tough. But, you know, especially if Derek Lively continues to develop,
well,
they're a team to watch.
Get your band phrase. You know, they're lucky they don't have to go up against the Knicks, though. Kevin Clark, how about you?
You stole my Knicks joke, Tony.
Sorry, I apologize.
First of all, there's an obvious path here, which is do better in the finals. The top 4 shooters on the Mavericks shot 26% from 3 in the finals. That is simply not good enough. There's a trade to be made here. I don't know what it is. Tim Hardaway Jr. goes from bad contract to expiring contract, which in the NBA can be valuable. I think you monitor who's ticked off in this league. That's just what you do if you're a good franchise, and you want to see who wants in. A superstar maybe wants to be in on here. So I think I'd be there. I don't know necessarily if there's one kind of role player they need. They just need A, to get better, and B, maybe a superstar.
But nobody's throwing out names. Superstars. You throw out Kevin Durant's name, or Klay Thompson available, or maybe you draft Bronny James, and then LeBron comes to you. No one's behind that one.
I'll throw.
Go ahead.
KD, circle KD. Just make a tampering call to KD. See if he wants to come down to hang out with Kalishow.
We'll move on. Game 5, Oilers-Panthers tonight. Edmonton's slogan going in is drag 'em back to Alberta. Will there be dragging? Will there be hoisting of Stanley? Florida on the doorstep of glory. Kevin, what you buy, what you sell tonight?
I am buying this to be a very nice story. However, great goaltenders kill nice stories, and that's what we have here. After a loss this year, Sergei Bobrovsky is 4-1, 913 save percentage, and less than 2 goals against. That's what you need to know. It will happen tonight. I'm circling Carter Verhaeghe here for the Panthers. He has 12 points in 12 game-clinching opportunities for the Panthers. He wins at no-2 tonight.
Tim Kalishow.
Game 4 here was as much an aberration as Game 4 in Dallas. There will be hoisting tonight, which is good because the Cup celebration is much better when it's at home than when it's on the road.
There will be hoisting, okay? Harry Lyles Jr.?
I am buying that Jason Tatum's high school classmate Matthew Tkachuk has to also get his championship tonight. That is going to happen. And I say that because I do think that last Game 4 was an aberration. Carter Verhaeghe mentioned that the Cup being in the building made things different, and you saw the Oilers come out with an energy that the Panthers did not match, and because of that, Bobrovsky had to basically cover for more mistakes than he typically does, and that's what got them that result. Florida's going to win tonight.
Marcel Louis-Jacques.
I'm going to keep it brief because I got to go meet with the Stanley Cup Parade Planning Committee here to figure out this Fort Lauderdale route. Edmonton needed a historically bad performance from Florida in Game 4 in order to win. It's the most goals they allowed all season, and for the first time all series, both Draisaitl and McDavid got involved. I don't think that's the case tonight. The Cup is coming to Florida.
There it is. It's a clean sweep for the Panthers tonight. Timmy, Marcel, thanks for your time. Harry Lyles Jr., Kevin Clark. That's our showdown. 2 minutes. When I said rapid fire, you guys weren't rapid enough. Only one showdown, and it's Grimace. The hot streak the Mets are on since Grimace's first pitch. They're 6-0. Do you believe Grimace saved the Mets season? Harry Lyles Jr., around the one to you.
Tony, of course, the Mets are being rewarded for taking care of Grimace on his birthday this year. McDonald's made a huge thing of it last year, didn't do it this year. They invited him. They're reaping the benefits of that, which now makes me urge the Atlanta Braves, please invite the Hamburglar.
Kevin Clark?
Wow. Yes, he's a culture changer, and culture changers don't wait. They immediately set the tone. Mr. Met, you can bring him in alongside Mr. Met. He's had, a couple of decades to fix the culture there. Hasn't done it. Mrs. Met hasn't done anything. Grimace is the way forward.
The way forward. This is
wide
disrespect to
going
Mr. Met. And it's ever since Mrs. Met lost her Twitter handle and her social media profile. That's when the problem is, oh my goodness, how dare you speak ill of Mr. Met. Kevin Clark. Harry Lyles Jr., no grimace from you. You're taking the FaceTime. Give me a smile.
Let's go, baby. You know, Tony, I'm glad you mentioned social media. The U.S. Surgeon General has actually recommended that there be warning labels placed on social media use similar to that of cigarette boxes. And I think that this is a phenomenal idea. They cite that this because of the harm that this could have on people's mental health, specifically adolescents. I think that this would be a great thing for everybody because honestly, a lot of y'all spend way too much damn time on social media. I think it could perhaps, Tony, and you might agree with this, have something to do with the reason that Jason Tatum was speaking in memes for the last 48 hours. So I think that this is a phenomenal idea and a baby step in order to getting to us on the right track for a more healthy society that is perhaps a little bit further away from social media.
Well, that is a very real conversation there. I'm happy you bring that up. I feel about Jason Tatum. But nobody needs to be pot-shotting that guy.
In those finals to help the Warriors win their first championship. So, Legs, it has been quite a journey for these Boston Celtics. You could say this season kind of reached its logical conclusion the way they were playing. What impressed you the most?
And I just think it's the depth of talent and the number of guys that played well at different times for the Boston Celtics in this series. Each of their guys had significant moments, signature moments. If they weren't all in the same night, it was enough on a given night to get it done. I don't think the Celtics played at their peak level, but the Dallas Mavericks played far below theirs. And I think a lot of that has to do with what Boston was able to do to them on both ends of the floor. They're just the most versatile team in the NBA, particularly with that starting five. So I think just in watching them, the balance, the depth, the way that they played together, the way that they played both ends of the floor. They were the most dominant team in the league all season. They lapped the Eastern Conference by a wide margin, and then they took on all comers out of the West. Eventually, that was Dallas, and they were no match for this team.
Yeah, they beat those Western Conference teams during the regular season, too. They won 8 playoff games by at least 15 points, third most all time in a postseason. Legs, though, we have to discuss the other side. So if you will, hang out for a minute. We'll talk Mavs. Meanwhile, Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals starts tonight at 8 Eastern on ABC. The Florida Panthers, seeking their first ever Stanley Cup, can become the third team in the expansion era to win the Cup after losing it the previous year, along with the '84 Oilers and the 2009 Penguins. After a dominant win in Game 4, the Oilers are now 3-0 in potential elimination games this postseason, tied with the 1990 and 98 seasons for the most wins in a single postseason in franchise history. And, of course, they won it all back in 1990. But Edmonton needs another big performance from their stars to keep their hopes alive tonight. Prior to Game 4, the Oilers' top 5 point scorers during the regular season had combined for just 4 points in the series. Connor McDavid had 3 of them, but all of that, of course, changed on Saturday. All 5 found the score sheet, and they combined for 10 points. So, on the move, obviously, coming back from up north all the way down to Sunrise, Florida, it is the Stanley Cup. These are pictures from inside the arena, and there it is, all of that history proudly etched on the cup. Will someone be drinking out of it within, I don't know, the next few hours? Emily Kaplan on the scene in Sunrise. What are the Panthers saying about that blowout loss the other night and how that prepared them for tonight's game with the chance to clinch their first ever Stanley Cup at home?
So, Hannah, I've been around the Panthers the last 2 days, and I asked a lot of the guys what they thought went wrong in Edmonton, and they admitted to me all of the fanfare around Game 4, the fact that the Stanley Cup was in the building, the fact that so many of their families and friends traveled out to Edmonton, that got to them, and they said that they over-forechecked, they overthought things, and they made some mistakes on defense. But Matthew Tkachuk said that the 2 days off between the games allowed the team to reset and reevaluate things, and this morning he said, we have a chance to go capture the biggest goal of our our lives, and we're going to go do that tonight. I mean, that sounds like a Mark Messier guarantee to me. They're going to make one lineup change tonight. Ryan Lomberg is coming in on the fourth line. He is a big energy guy. He's a good vibes guy, and he hasn't played since about midway through last round and said, I've got a lot of gas in the tank, and I'm going to empty it out there tonight.
All right, let's talk about the other side then, because the Oilers are trying to extend their season. And I understand there's a phrase that they've adopted as they try to force a game back six back at home. What can you tell us?
Yeah, this might be the spiciest quote I've ever heard from Connor McDavid. He said it after Game 4. I heard some of his teammates say it today, and they said, we're going to drag them back to Alberta. Connor McDavid elaborated on today. It's a really long flight, and it's a tough flight for the players, and he knows it's going to be even tougher if they lose in this game, so they want to make sure that the Panthers have to do that flight too to extend the series. You mentioned off the top, this team is 3-0 in potential elimination games this playoffs, but they're back against the wall mentality.